Hi, everyone. This is Practical Mystics, where we explore spiritual and higher dimensional practices and beliefs and share practical steps to support others who are on a spiritual path. And I am Lisa Heidle, and I'm here with my very special guest today, Marilyn Daniels. Hello, Marilyn.
Hello, Lisa, and thank you for a wonderful opportunity to be here with you this evening on my time zone and to present some information for some listeners that I hope that they will find very insightful and practical.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let me go ahead and do your bio real quick. Let people know who you are and what our topic is today. Well, I'm going to say our topic because I'm so excited. It's astrocartography, and I got it out. So, okay. That's always the goal. Okay, astrocartography. So let me go ahead and introduce Marilyn, and then we'll let Marilyn tell us and explain to us and teach us about astrocartography. So Marilyn Daniels is the host of Astrocartography with Marilyn Podcast, and she is an astrologer, astrocartographer, and the founder of the Journey Pathway, which blends astrology and astrocartography to help others harmonize their life paths with celestial energies. And I'll put more about Marilyn in the show notes, and as also with a link for a discount for some of her services. But Marilyn, I'm going to go ahead and throw you the ball here. What is astrocartography?
Thank you again, Lisa. Well, for those of you, for your listeners here who may know something about astrology, astrocartography is actually a branch of astrology. And in the simplest of terms, it's the maps. It's a process that maps the planetary influences of your birth chart across different locations, across different geographical locations around the globe. And this helps all of us with understanding, how various locations can impact aspects of our life, such as our careers, our relationships, and our personal growth. So that, in a nutshell, is what astrocartography is about. Literally putting your birth chart across a world map and seeing where the different planetary placements are rising and setting and the various lines that interchange through that.
I love that. Well, and a little bit of background with me is I'm a digital nomad, which means I'm out here traveling and just letting things unfold in a way that I've never done in my lifetime. And I felt so compelled to do that, to just explore. And I have no doubt that that's showing itself somewhere in my chart, right? It has to be.
Definitely will be.
Yeah. And, in some of the locations that I found myself in, really the level of growth and healing and challenges that I encountered there were just mind-boggling. And I recognize now I couldn't have grown in the way that I needed to without those experiences. So I love this opportunity for our listeners to have an understanding of that they can see this laid out on their chart and use it to help their own personal growth. And what a practical way to do it, right?
Very, very practical way. And thank you for sharing your own experience, because what you just shared, Lisa, is exactly what can transpire for people when they are aware and open and therefore willing to understand that, like anything in life that any of us deal with, there are really positive attributes, and there are always going to be the other side of the coin as far as what challenges do I need to rise to in order to integrate both parts of it so that I am a more whole person in context of where I've been, the experiences I've encountered, who I've connected with, and for all manner of different reasons. So it's a pretty exciting discipline to actually to be aware of what's actually going on that we may not have known in the past. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you for, coming on and teaching us, because I know nothing about astrocartography other than what I've learned from you and as I've been preparing. But I really, I just love the idea that people can integrate it in a very practical way. It doesn't have to be, it's out there somewhere. It's like, no, we can bring, like you said, the celestial energies into our lives and integrate them into our decision making. And that, to me, I love that idea. So thank you for,
And it's when we're aware that that's what actually is available to us to tap into. That's what makes it a practical option to be aware of, if that makes any sense to somebody. Um, you've asked me to have a look at a couple of different attributes of astrology in context of astrocartography, because astrocartography, and I do not want to create concern or too much technical jargon associated with it, but there are a lot of lines involved in astrocartography. So I'm not going to go into the technical aspects, but when we're looking at things like the sun, the moon, and other planetary placements, we are looking to see where those luminaries, being the sun and the moon, or the planetary placements, are rising or setting. Rising is important, setting is important. So where they are rising and setting across the globe, and what that actually can mean for each of us in context of where our sun is rising in a part of the world. And also what's really important for our listeners to recognize, Lisa, is it's not only where these planetary placements are rising and setting across the world, it's also important to recognize where they are in your horoscope. Okay, and where they are in your natal chart. I'll offer an example, and I'll start with the sun, if that's okay with everyone. Because the sun, literally every day, the sun rises for us somewhere in either the northern or southern hemisphere, depending on the time zone. And so the sun and the moon are both regarded as luminaries. They illuminate the sky at the day and the night. And the sun is the hot energy that presents itself every day. And how we integrate that energy can be really important, because we always have to take into consideration that the sun will always come up, but some days they're going to be clouds covering it. Some days there's going to be a lot of wind around to change how the heat moves. Some days it's going to rain. And that's pretty much an aspect of life in itself, that, yeah, some days are lovely, bright and shiny. Other days are a bit clouded. Other days it's gale force winds or just light breezes keeping us on our toes or comfortable, or we're being more aware to stay indoors or wear the right clothing for rain. So there's a similar attribute in context of how these luminaries present themselves to us. But the sun line holds a really significant importance in astrocartography. It's the line that represents the area around the world where we will shine brightly, like the sun shines brightly every day. And it gives us a really heightened sense of our vitality, our self-expression, and also our personal fulfillment. So when a sun line intersects a particular location somewhere in the world, it'll also signify where you're likely to feel a really deep intrinsic alignment with your true self. That's what the sun does. It comes up every day and it shines itself on us. And this is in context of your true self. What's more, you'll also be aligned to your core ambitions and your goals. And if I can offer a insight, because I personally, where I'm born in Australia, I personally had the sun rising straight over Southeast Queensland, where I'm from. And I also have my sun sign that sits in the first house. So there was a double whammy for me in being in a position to learn how to use this phenomenal energy that was available to me. And so the core goals and ambitions that a person has, it can look at things like you're providing you insights into self-confidence. It can look into how you're presenting yourself with creativity. It can also look at how you're presenting yourself in leadership capacities. So from a career perspective, somebody wanting to achieve another role, another extension of their career, then if it's into a leadership type role, then being on a sun line can really highlight that for them. Okay. And the sun line, yes.
So if someone is in a location and they're like, nothing is working, I keep trying and hustling and nothing is moving forward, and I feel stuck. When you look at their chart, would you can see, you're like, oh, your sun line is like it's in another country, or your sun line is on the other coast, like you're in the wrong location. Is that how you would use that with astrocartography?
Yes, yes, that's exactly the case. And I can appreciate somebody may be unable to move to the other side of the country, let alone to somewhere else in the world. But that's why I'm also sharing that when you look at somebody's horoscope to see, well, where is their actual sun? What of the 12, or which I should say, of the 12 house placements is it in? So if it's in somebody's first house, it's all about them, and what they really are trying to achieve, and they get extra insight of that, which I was very grateful that I did. That's where my sun sign is. Or if it's in their sixth house of work, or if it's in their 10th house of their career and the legacy that they're going to leave behind, then it's in that person's best interest to find some creative way. And I say creative because the sun shows us how to be very creative. It highlights different, it literally illuminates and highlights things for us to see. So to find some way that if they can go to a sun line, even if it's for 3 months, 6 months, to do a temporary assignment in a work context, like that line will give them this beautiful energy that allows them to express themselves on a more personal, individual level. It literally will open them up to shine, to say, and supporting them to step into their position of a prominence in whether it is a leadership role that they need to go and achieve. I'm a former HR professional as well and context, when you would go to a leadership day, 3-day workshop, retreat, whatever it might have been, it may have helped you with some of the technical aspects of it, but did it actually help you as the person that aligns with how you can best integrate that technical help and or bring you to the forefront? So if they're anybody's ever in a position to actually go and experience these different lines in rising and setting from the planetary placements or the sun and moon, then yes, it is a really good opportunity to integrate something that you're being asked to learn. And so I can honestly appreciate that people may find that a challenge. Do you think, how do I just go to the other side of the states for 6 months? What do I do? There is a practical way in identifying that, or what would it take for me to do that? To literally sit down and think, okay, if I'm doing what it is I'm doing and I'm earning a sum of money that I'm earning, then maybe I can take a month off in 6 months, or maybe I can take 3 months off in 12 months or something. Because that's something, then when you go to these planetary lines, then you integrate that energy. And once you have it, you don't unhave it when you relocate somewhere else. And like you're sharing, you're a digital nomad, so you get to travel around in different pockets of America and into Canada at times. That allows you to engage with all these different celestial guidance that is there to support you in some way. And you're being very open to recognizing that it's available to you. And yeah, some days there are challenges, some weeks there are challenges, some months there might be challenges, but you're being open to integrating what is being presented to you. So whilst the sun line is a really powerful line to be in, because this can be very good with people in careers who want to, they just know in their heart that this is something that is really important to them. It could be also very important in their personal life from a personal growth perspective, from gaining an insightful spiritual connection with themselves. It could also be a creative pursuit that they're looking at. So something that they're really, really quite passionate about, that, it gives them the opportunity to assert their personal gifts. And if where they currently are, as a home zone, as your birth zone or something, isn't quite providing that insight and opportunity, then yeah, ducking over to a sunline for whatever is an opportune time to do, for however long that time can be, is certainly going to be a benefit for somebody. because it can be the catalyst for people, for personal growth. It gives opportunities to share and to create an impact, to do something of what you're here to do in context in that way.
I meet a lot of digital nomads, of course, on my travels. We kind of find each other. And so many of them like, oh, when I went to this location, it felt so right. It felt like home, like almost like I'd been here before, that feeling. So I love this idea that sometimes we know, yet we dismiss it. We say, oh, well, it was just a moment, or I was on the honeymoon phase with the location, or, and it's like, oh no, there's something happening here that we can be really looking at and starting to understand things about ourselves, as well as our life plan that is laid out in front of us. Because I do believe we all have a blueprint when we come, our soul, our spirit arrives here. So I love that. So if we have the sun sign, then as you said, we have the sun and the moon. And very often people know those in their chart. They know their sun sign, and then they'll know their moon sign. And so what can we learn with our moon sign?
Can I just want to put in something else before I move on to the moon sign, if that's okay, because it's also really, really important that people find their balance when they go to any astrocartography line. And like Lisa, that you've already shared, in that, sometimes things are challenging. So it's really, really important to recognize the balance in life. And as somebody who never really had much say about work-life balance, I'm a woman who flips it to be life-work balance. Being in the spotlight is one thing, but like everything we have in life, we have to find the balance. We have to find the harmony so that we don't, in the sun's case, we don't burn out. Okay.
Thank you for adding that. Yeah.
It's really important to recognize that whilst we've found ourselves in a great location that's giving us all the opportunity to step up and step out and to fulfill something, we've got to be extremely mindful that this positivity can actually provide some potential challenges for us, like you shared earlier. And it's not a negative impact per se, but it's an awareness impact of living or traveling to a sun line in particular. And so being in a spotlight for any length of time, it may really put pressure on you to constantly perform. That's going to lead to stresses and burnouts and maintaining this high level of achievement. So being aware of what you're trying to achieve and why, and then what this means, like, if I've gone in for a period of time to achieve what I'm trying to achieve, and do I get taken away in the light of the sun to continue with it, to be really aware of the sun in particular, that it can magnify our ego. That's the side of the sun where the ego is going to come in from. And sadly, that can lead to arrogance or being overconfident. And then we could become so good at what we feel we can do that we become a little bit self-centered as well. So it's recognizing some of these attributes there's a really positive attribute, but if I stay too long and get too much of a big head about it, let my ego get carried away, then I could really bring myself down very fast. The focus on then not being able to achieve, and then finding flaws and failures within ourselves, rather than to be able to celebrate the successes. So again, finding that balance in our professional life so that it doesn't overshadow our personal life, that could potentially leave you into some kind of zone of isolation. It's pretty important to harmonize how you're going to not get too carried away with what can be presented and for how long you want to be in the space for. And so, it's important that I want yourself and our listeners to recognize that nothing's just one. There's always the other side of something. So I hope that helps in context of those days when it's raining. You might want to take advantage of, if the sun's shining too brightly, that you need some time out so that you don't end up finding yourself in a position where your health is literally at risk of burning out in that context.
Oh, thank you for adding that. That was so beautifully put, because there's always a flip side, right?
Yes.
Life it demands a balance. It does. In anytime we're out of balance, we know it, and it can snowball very quickly. So thank you for that. That's wonderful. And so is the moon the balance?
No, well, she is and she isn't, and I'm saying calling her a she because in astrological terms, the masculine is the sun, and then the moon is the feminine, and in most cases, a planet is a masculine or feminine entity as well. But the sun is the daylight luminary, and the moon is the nighttime luminary at the end of the day, and they only ever meet. They cross the what's called the ecliptic path as they go around the Earth, and they only ever meet during eclipse periods, which people, I would hope listeners understand what the eclipses, but that's when these two beautiful luminary energies connect. They cross each other's paths, which is why we get solar eclipses and lunar eclipses, solar being sun, lunar being the moon. But the moon is also another really significant line in astrocartography because it unveils the locations where you're going to connect very, very deeply with your emotional and intuitive self. Okay, this is like the sun is wanting to shine up brightly out into the world, whereas it's the internal, the moon is the internal sides of ourselves. And so with the moon, she'll illuminate places that truly resonate with you. So you mentioned earlier that people go somewhere and they think, yeah, I just feel really at home here. I just feel really aligned with being here. Whether that is a moon line, I can't honestly say, but it's a possibility or even a probability because it's the inner world within us. It's our instincts and our sense of comfort is what the moon is all about. She's our emotions at the end of the day and how we harmonize our emotions. It's the moon line in particular locations also signifies where we're likely to find very nurturing environments that support our emotional well-being and our personal growth, therefore contributing to the personal inner harmony. Okay. But again, knowing that her role, the moon's role, is to integrate our nurturing, our intuition, because the moon is about connecting with our intuition. She is a entity that can change the tides, rise and setting of the tides. We are 70% water as human beings, so we are very affected by her, as people are during full moons and all sorts of the 8 phases of the moon. But it's also about our emotions and our emotional security and how we can establish our emotional security. And so for people who either live on this line or can have the opportunity to travel to a moon line, they're likely to experience things like a stronger connection to your personal roots, to a family, because the moon is very, very family, where I'm from, roots kind of entity. And our home life can also improve in a moon line. So her option for us is a really supportive environment, but because she is a luminary as well, like the sun, will highlight what we can achieve. The moon, being the inner sides of things, gives us the opportunity to reflect and heal and to cultivate a deeper understanding of ourselves. Like, why do I get emotionally unsettled when X happens? Or why do I feel like I've been thrown out of balance when something else happens? So again, the moon's line, unlike the sun's line that's very good at providing opportunities to shine, to grow in context of the external sides of ourselves, and the moon is more about the internal sides of ourselves, and it's where we can find solace in deepening our understanding of our intuition and creating a sense of emotional balance. So again, like anything though, with that lovely balance in life to begin with, we have to be aware of, what are we looking for in a place, number one? Are we looking for introspection or to establish a home? Or are we want to engaging in activities that really support and foster our emotional growth? If we are, then a moon line can certainly offer that to us. But then there is the flip side again of anything, which is not the negative, it's not a nice word to use, but where we can find inner peace and personal fulfillment that aligns more closely with our intuitive and emotional self is a great place to be, because we will not get the stresses that go up and down and up and down. But
So
we
if
may
some,
become, sorry,
sorry,
yeah,
I thought you were finished there. I
yeah.
interrupted.
We may become really overwhelmed by too much emotion going on around us. And how do we actually work with it, that we become susceptible to mood swings? We were doing okay until we ended up in a moon line, like things, there's just too much going on for us, or that emotional stability becomes emotional instability because there's too much going on. The moon is the holder, the container of all the emotions that we're going to experience in life. And we learn them all by the time we're 2.5, believe it or not. So nostalgia is one of her key considerations as well. And so clinging on to the past, if we're in a moon line for too long and not knowing how to move forward, if we're still holding on too tightly to being in the past, it may put us in a position of being stuck or stagnant, and therefore unable, or at best reluctant, to let go of old habits and even relationships. And how do we move on from that? If we're sitting in this zone that, yeah, I just feel comfortable here and I want to stay here. I don't want to go over there and try to learn something new or grow in a different direction. But that can be very much to our detriment if we choose to stay idle. So being overwhelmed with being in our creature comforts and not willing to try something else can also present itself in a moon line in an aspect that, yeah, I'm comfortable here. I just want to sit still. Emotional dependency, if I keep getting support by somebody else, be it a family member or a partner or friends, then am I going to ever step out of that if somebody keeps propping me up again? Well, I would hope yes, but maybe it's a bit challenging for a person who thinks, well, I constantly get supported by this number of people or this particular person. So feeling that, I'm never going to need to get out of this space, but then a codependent relationship presents itself and then takes you on a different journey to understand, well, what do I need? What do I do about this now? Surely I can't stay like that, but maybe some people can. I would hope that they're in a position, because that then leads to escapism, something like that, where I don't know how to get out. So I'm going to find something that is more accessible and at my disposal that I can readily get my hands on. And what that might be could be a number of different things. So there is always a consideration to recognize that, yes, the moon can give us, a moon line can really help us tap into the higher learning of our emotional stability. But if there's a lot of emotional upheaval that's going on at a stage in life, then it could literally pull us back down again. So it's harmonizing that balance.
So if someone is they're in a state where they're like, I really feel like I need to go inside and really, reflect and try to, figure out the next steps in my life, they can look at their chart that's done by hopefully you, right? An astrocartographerist, and actually have it in front of them and be like, well, let me look where my moon line is, and maybe I'll go there for a couple of weeks and really feel what I feel there. And maybe that'll help me unlock this stagnation that I'm feeling. Is that a good way to use it?
That's a perfect example, Lisa. That's a perfect example. Like we were just sharing with the sun line, if I need to know that I must step out of this zone and I must come out into the light. And many human beings will experience this at some stage in their life, that they, particularly entrepreneurs in today's world who are online entrepreneurs at that, they may not feel comfortable to come up to a camera and have to learn how to just talk to themselves on a camera, for example. But literally, if that's just a simple example, then going somewhere where we get an injection of sunlight to help us shine, yes, then go there for a period of time that is possible. maybe not overstay it so you don't burn out and get too carried away with ego. And the moon is exactly the same, like all the planetary placements are offering that balancing in there. So if, yes, life is becoming too emotionally imbalanced, unstable, whatever term that's used, and going to a retreat somewhere for a period of time and just letting yourself be where you are, letting go of the discomfort that presented to get you to be where you presently are, and going to, having an opportunity rather to just embrace the nurturing that's going to come there, and therefore the intuitive aspects that you're going to get insights for that then will establish that emotional stability in your life, while recognizing that, any other negative aspects I can mitigate them. I don't have to be so heavily in my head or in my emotions to recognize that, yeah, this is pulling me down. Because you will always meet somebody else, or an experience will always present to help you come back in alignment with yourself in some way, shape, or form. It just magically happens. It really does. So they're the two luminaries in context. But so yeah, when we need to feel like, okay, it's time I need to step out and step up, I will look maybe to where my sun is, where my sun placement is. And like I shared earlier, the sun placement in a person's horoscope and the moon placement and all the planetary placements, it's important to recognize where they are in your personal horoscope to begin with, and then see what happens when a sun line presents or a moon line presents in a different part of the world or a different part of a country, and you go there. That's going to also change the house placements when you go there. So there'll be some other reason that may be unaware at the time as to why you will choose to go there, or intuitively gravitate to go there. So it's there's a lot more fascination involved than a black and white answer that, okay, this is happening in my life, I need to go and do X. There's there'll be an opportunity to go to X and understand what is there and integrate with that energy, but it'll be in a different house in your horoscope than your birth chart, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. And we'll be talking on Practical Mystics to someone who's going to come in and talk about houses, for people who are unaware that we actually have all of the astrological signs by houses in our chart. So, and each house does something different. So I think that's so important for people to recognize that, as an example, my Taurus, which is my sun sign, is in my 10th house. And there may be another Taurus who it is in their 12th house, so
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Yeah, it's important for listeners to recognize that. So that particular episode will be a very practical experience for everybody to recognize that, yes, we have all 12 zodiac signs somewhere in our birth chart, and we have them dotted throughout the 12 houses. But when we relocate somewhere, or even go on holidays for a short period of time, or we choose to go to another location for work for a year or 2 years contract, whatever that might be, then those planetary placements, even though they're going to still connect to each other as they do, that they're going to change houses. Makes sense?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so good. Thank you for sharing that. And so now we know our sun and our moon. And the one that everyone's always curious about, right, is the Venus. And Venus is love, right? So can you speak a little bit about Venus with the
I certainly can. Firstly, Lisa and listeners, please be aware that Venus, she actually is the ruler of not one, but two of the 12 zodiac signs, and that being Taurus. Your host here, Lisa, is a Taurian, but she's also the ruler of Libra. So for any of you who may have an understanding of some Taurian traits and some Libran traits, this is what Venus is all about. So she's very much about, the influence of being the planet of love, of beauty, of harmony. That can be a very potent line to go on. Okay, very much so. because Venus, she signifies, enhanced relationships. If you end up on a Venus line, it's highly probable that you will get an enhanced relationships. But that enhanced relationship can be with another, as in a romantic relationship. It could be a stronger bond of new friendships. And it can also be a greater bond with ourself in regard to self-worth. Okay. She'll bring out the artistic inspiration in us. She will find a way, again, because it's a feminine, it's Aphrodite in Greek mythology. She'll bring out a deep sense of pleasure, very Taurian as far as our taste, our touch, our sight, our sounds, like all the sensory perceptions of Taurian energy. And as I'm just showing you, she'll also highlight our self-worth. So if we're not feeling like we have much self-worth, then she will obviously give us some insight as to how we can feel better about ourselves. She can also highlight things like enriching, like a romance in life. That's what people are probably waiting to hear me say, something along those lines, and it certainly can. And I've already shared about creativity, but it's that strong appreciation for beauty. If you think of the artists in the world who create what they do in all manner of art, form of art, not just painters or potterers, but the whole realm of art. She can bring out the appreciation of understanding the artistic attributes of ourselves and of others, and again highlight that self-value. She's also associated with themes like affection and attraction, the aesthetics, and when you're on these locations, it's highly probable that you'll experience people that nurture that sense of love and harmony within ourselves. Okay. So the other thing is to be aware that Venus lines are a really, really beautiful, fertile ground for developing meaningful connections, on whether that be, like I'm sharing, on a romantic level or a platonic level or even a professional level. So if you've been wandering off in a sun zone and feel good about things, then a Venus line will literally tap into some professional connections that you could become familiar with and become partnerships within a business context or a professional context in that space. And because this backdrop also offers the artistic endeavors and creative pursuits, it allows us to then express our natural selves in a greater ease and joy. So living or even spending significant time along a Venus line, you can enhance your ability to attract and maintain loving relationships with others, and self. Okay, it really does tap into. Yeah, sorry, Lisa.
If you are on a Venus line and you can see it on your chart, is that a powerful place to be manifesting from?
It certainly can be. Our moon is another one, because the moon is the manifestor. And thank you for raising that, because I didn't think to say that at the time. But yes, you can turn around, and once we have this awareness of knowledge, information to begin with, then we're more comfortable in knowing that, okay, I can achieve this. Any negativity associated with not, believing that I'm not capable of achieving something, it doesn't disappear directly, but it can certainly be diminished over the time that we incorporate the new knowledge of what we're acquiring along the way from these experiences and the people that we're actually bringing into our life. So yes, we can certainly see that, if somebody did want to be married, then clearly a Venus line is the place to go. It's also important, though, to recognize, what the other person is. Like that's a synastry, astrology kind of consideration as to what's going on between two people. But Venus will not only help attract the right person to us in that environment and then feel better about ourselves in that environment. And that does on both a romantic level, as I shared, but it also creates a really really lovely opportunity to both create and build really good friendships. And it's also an opportunity to really tap into and immerse yourself into whatever artistic expression that you want to bring out. So depending on who you are and what you're wanting to achieve is going to be your personal reason for why you would want to go to a Venus line. Okay.
Thank you. And you mentioned synastry, and that's where you have two separate charts that you bring together. So
Yes.
like if you have a partner, and it could be romantic, it could be business, but if you bring those two charts together, you can see where, with astrocartography, and I'm asking this question, can you see where the lines overlay and they meet up?
Yes, we can, in context of that. When you're looking at, so you're looking at one person, and you can clearly see what's going on as far as a Venus line and where that may be located. And then you're going to see, well, where's Venus for the other person? How far away might that be? But it's one way to look at it in that context. But the flip side of that is to see, well, why do you go there in the first place?
So always
What
look
do
back
you
at
actually?
self.
That's exactly right, Lisa. That's exactly right. It's why am I feeling the urge to end up somewhere that potentially unawares to the individual that it's a Venus line? What is asking them to move into? Is it asking them to? Is it that stage of their life asking them to say that, yeah, it's time that I need to feel more confident, comfortable with my self-worth, to have a higher level of self-esteem, to be, to love myself in a really nice, comfortable and confident way. So, and maybe, who knows, maybe the other person that shows up in life for either a romantic relationship or in a friendship or in a professional context is literally going to enhance that, to help bring it out.
Mm-hmm. So if you have two different charts, and someone that you're romantically interested in, and their Venus is in home and hearth, and being in one location, right, to grow and to develop, and yours is in travel and adventure, would you say, maybe we need to consider this? Or would you say, oh, maybe you could help each other? Is that, I mean, there's no right black or white.
There is no black and whites. There's some beautiful shades of gray and all colors of the rainbow in the mix of all this, but we're speaking about Venus, and that's only one placement. When you're interrelating all the other planetary placements of Mercury, of being able to communicate effectively with each other, of knowing that you're there for each other in what needs to be, then Venus may not have the importance that she needs in a romantic relationship per se. Maybe she has it in being a really solid rock for somebody in context in that way. So it's really important when you're looking at synastry, two horoscopes from a synastry perspective, you're looking at the whole chart of both people, I should say, to seeing, well, yeah, there will be placements in the two individuals like there are in our own charts as to. So yeah, as we're sharing, Lisa, when it comes to Venus and Venus in a synastry chart of two people, it's important to recognize that even though Venus may look really lovely in one Venus line for one person from an astrocartography perspective, that maybe the other person in this relationship is not so closely aligned to a Venus line. That's neither a good nor bad thing. It just means that that's how it is. Maybe these people in a synastry, when you're looking at their synastry, that they've got a really nice Mercury placement that will help them get through a lot of whatever life throws at them at different stages of their relationship, to know that they can effectively communicate. And when Venus might not be coming together so strongly for them, if they're in their location or choose to go on holidays or take an extended period of time for a career for one of them, or whatever the circumstances may be, it's really important for the listeners to recognize that when an astrologer is looking at a synastry, two horoscopes for two people, and particularly two people in a more of a deep, meaningful relationship, in marriage kind of relationship or potential marriage, that Venus is only one of the 12 placements that we're looking at. We're looking at a much broader piece of information for both individuals in context. So yeah, what are they doing as far as other planetary positions? And yeah, where is that at? And then we would also look at what's going on in progressions and stuff like that from an astrology perspective, but I don't want to get people confused on other aspects. But I also wanted to share, though, for our listeners, is that, like I've shared with you with the sun and the moon, the practical application of the two luminaries that we've spoken about, they're not detrimental aspects of the sun and moon per se, even though something can burn us out if we get too close and too fulfilled and we're not harmonizing and balancing something else in our life. And so our personal lives may take a dive in that. If we're getting too emotionally comfortable somewhere, that we may become withdrawn and then find ourselves in slightly more difficult situations. Venus is certainly another aspect to be, or another planetary aspect to be aware of, that if things are going along really, really nicely and we become so overindulgent, which is a very Venetian kind of attribute, that this might just manifest itself into spending too much money, overeating or overindulging in some way, that in essence can then turn to a much bigger problem in our life. It's a health concern in our life again, or becoming becoming superficial in relationships, for example, like everything is just so rosy, it's all good, and then I'm spending too much time on, not me personally, listeners, as an example, that, spending too much time on eating well and looking my best, that I'm going to be attracting the wrong people in my life because it becomes a little bit superficial, rather than me trying to attract a more deep and meaningful bond with other people. So it's not just about the physical attraction or the materialism. It's what you're actually going there for and how you're going to use the energy as to how it will present you, if that makes sense. Becoming complacent and being able to stay in that lovely little comfort zone. Similarly to a moon placement, if you become too emotionally ingrained in there, then you're not going to be motivated to actually get out and pursue your personal growth and any professional ambitions that you may have. And it's likely that you will. Venus is also around, because it's around love, you're going to step into the realms of jealousy and insecurity in space of things. So if I'm not looking my best because I'm spending too much cash on something, or I'm eating too much fine food out, then am I going to be jealous if somebody's going to look the wrong way at me? If I'm, not coming up to the standards that I've set for myself, if I'm overly concerned about the perceptions that people have of me or something like that, and the comparisons that they may make. So that's another side of Venus. Clearly the material sides of things, putting too much value on a material possession. No disregard, no disrespect, I should say, to people who would like nice cars. They have nice cars, but its purpose is to get you from A to B. That's it. You're going to get there in style, but it's your purpose to get from A to B. So possessions and external appearances can really take you in the wrong direction, from my perception, rather than into a more fulfilling and spiritual growth. So that then leads to things like being in a position to heighten a sense of balance, of pleasure and self-esteem. Like when it's that lovely little balance that sits there. So for anybody who's seeking to deepen their romantic relationships or create and build new friendships, or are wanting to immerse themselves in things like their artistic expression, maybe even looking to boost their self-esteem, then Venus can certainly be the line to lead you to more fulfillment. And for a harmonizing life, be aware of the gifts that she brings, that you don't overindulge, which is a very Taurian trait, and that you're not just going to harmonize, a very Libran trait, which is which are the two zodiac signs that she rules, that you don't lose sight of the benefits that Venus can offer.
Oh, that was so great. And I love that you brought up that Venus is also, it's self-love, right? It is, if you are giving yourself away, all the time to others, and you need to spend time with yourself, reconnecting with yourself, you can look at your Venus line and be like, wow, I'm going to go to the Bahamas, or, if that's where it's, and to go
That's
and
it.
be with myself.
Literally,
And
fill your cup back up again, like literally,
yeah,
using my example, like filling your cup back up again. It's also being aware and understanding, and therefore acknowledging that's why I came here. And when I go back to where it is I'm going to, or where, as a digital nomad for somebody like yourself, where am I going to next? To be aware that I don't slip back down into that role again. That
yeah,
I've actually learnt and implemented something into my life that is going to help me grow. It's going to help our listener grow in context of, yeah, what was my little lesson in there? Like, I'm a woman who really does see life unfolding as lessons. So
as
I
do
didn't
I.
just. I appreciate that we're in good company. I really do.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Oh, that was so great. And, our listeners are going to be able to take from that, like, okay, there's a lot here to a chart, but let me get my chart and so done so that I can really kind of dig in and see what all this means. And, when people who I know that have had this done, that a lot of it is retroactive. They're like, oh my gosh, my birthplace was on here and it was so challenging. And now I see why, like, by, what each line means. Or, oh my gosh, when I went there, I loved it. Or I've always wanted to go to this place and I didn't know
Yeah.
why. And now I understand that. And you're a perfect example of someone who's had used this in action, right? So can you tell our listeners a little bit about your journey with your chart?
Okay, thank you, Lisa. I am, like, to begin with, listeners, you may have heard me say earlier, I'm actually an Australian, and right now I'm residing in Crete in Greece. And I've been an avid traveler for a number of decades now, which is going to expose my age, and that's totally fine. And I've had the opportunity to be in locations, and like Lisa is sharing, that when you go somewhere that something doesn't feel quite right, and you think, oh, am I going to be safe here? As a woman who travels on my own a lot of time over the years, or wow, this just feels really harmonizing. I just want to chill out here for the rest of my days. So I'm sure each and every one of us have had those types of experiences without really knowing why. And at the time of maybe not knowing why isn't a bad thing by any means. It's from my perspective, it's just recognizing that, yeah, this is a really cool place. I feel comfortable to go and do whatever it is I want to do. I know I'm safe. I just am just not floating around on cloud nine with my head in the clouds and like that, but I just feel really good here. And we're going to know that. And that's potentially a moon line. But in all honesty, I've never actually been on a moon line, so I can't put my hand on my heart to say how that may experience. But I certainly have been to places where I felt really comfortable. But what Lisa is asking of me, like, as an Australian who ended up in Crete, sincerely, I didn't have a clue initially. uh, I shared earlier, speaking about the sun line, that my natal sun is in my first house, and I'm a Cancerian, so I'm a water sign. And flowing in life is pretty important to me. Although I respect the sea, the ocean, the forms of water that surrounds us on Earth, that they can be quite turbulent at times. They could throw us around all over the place. But whilst I lived in Southeast Queensland, which is where I'm from, I had a pretty charmed life in my eyes, and I never really understood why. But as a young girl growing up, I never liked school. There you go. I put it out to the universe. I never liked school. I really didn't like school. And where I'm from, the state of Queensland, at the time, you could give up school at the age of 15 without your parents' consent. So at 15, I did. I just packed in school. No, I don't like this at all. I later learned, many years later, that my Jupiter in Aries placement was really pushing me a little bit outside of my comfort zone. So it wasn't until my late 20s that I realized the value of education, but education of topics that I felt close to my heart, which happened to be, things like geography and history, which I didn't see were going to make me a lot of money at any time in my life, but who knows? So I embarked on taking an opportunity to go back to school. And I went back to school, and it turned out in a 10-year period of time, and I'd recognized that my son placement across Southeast Queensland was really going to shine brightly on what I was going to achieve as far as my goal. So I not only achieved 1 degree, I actually achieved 3. And the first one was a degree in human resource management and organizational communication, which I then took to great spaces. I'm very grateful that I'm a woman who had a really good career for 20 years. And that career led me to understanding my gift to supporting people, which, again, the sun turned around and just shone brightly on me. It's a natural Cancerian trait to want to help and support and nurture people. And we each have Cancerian placement, a placement somewhere, or a house that's ruling it at least. So have a look at it when you get a chance to look at your horoscope, because it's there. And I recognized that I had a gift that I could support others in. And so I spent 20 years supporting others through various transitions in employment, running graduate development programs to support people to aspire to aspects of what they were wanting to achieve in life. And in essence, I then saw that, okay, be careful, because I can be put under the spotlight of people expecting more than me than what I may want to give at any point in time. Like I'll give to a person to support their growth, to travel through their life. But does an organization want too much of me at some point in time? I get to make that choice. And I recognize that. And so I then chose to go to different pockets around my birth country and live and work in different parts of the country, which helped balance and harmonize me so that I didn't get put in a position where I could burn out too easily. And after all of that, though, 20 years passed and something had shifted inside me on my own personal journey that I was unsure about what I wanted to do next in my life. And I'd been a little girl who had a fascination with the moon. And then I'd been dabbling and playing in astrology for about 10 years prior to leaving the HR discipline. And I thought, all right, not sure what you're going to do, Marilyn. I just know what you're not going to do. And so astrology presented quite strongly in my focus. In addition to that, astrocartography presented when I unknowingly, intuitively, guided by a universe decision that said, go to Crete. And I'm like, really? What for? Why am I going there? And now I have a bit more of an understanding of what that actually means to me, because leaving behind a sun placement was one thing. I have, as I'm sharing, I have no idea where my moon placements. I do know if I went to France, in Paris in particular, I have a lovely moon placement there, but I'm yet to get to France or Paris. And I've learned where other placements are in my horoscope. But here in Crete, I don't have any of that aspect of me. And so I have a Pluto line that is very close to me in Crete, and a Mars line that runs the length of Crete. So I'm constantly in a space where I'm evolving. That's Pluto's responsibility. And I'm evolving because there was something that I wanted more than a 20-year career. It was my ability to say to myself, okay, you're missing community. And I could not have been so fortunate to land myself in a part of the world, in this little pocket called Crete, that just oozes community. So I'm right in it, even though I'm learning a language, I'm learning more about the culture. I'm in a completely different part of the world where I don't understand any of the practices of a country. Well, I do now, but I didn't understand the practice of a country being a westernized person. But I am well and truly finding myself immersed in a community sense, which has more recently then shown me what I could do in context of astrology and astrocartography to support others in a community environment. Because for the last 10 years nearly of being here, I provided my services on one-on-one consultations, but something kept driving me to say, no, Marilyn, this is good, but it's not good enough. And that wasn't a harsh thing to say to myself. It was a reality to say that people can see what they can see and feel and learn their own journey. But I felt it was truly important for people to see each other's in context of people that they didn't know. And that was my means of actually trying to I'm achieving, creating community in the space of the work that I do in astrology and astrocartography. So my own little journey of leaving my birth country has taken a little bit of time to manifest and present itself where I am here in Crete, but it's been somewhat tumultuous and challenging journey, but nonetheless, I am very grateful for some of those tumultuous and challenging times to get me to where I am today. So to be honest with you listeners, you're here having this incredible opportunity to have a life, not to just exist, to actually have a life. And what you choose to do with your life is clearly your choice. I'm very grateful that I've been able to tap into two very big passions in my life, which show up in a Taurian MC 10th house placement. So there you go.
Marilyn, this
that gives you a bit of insight.
Yeah, that was so wonderful to hear how you used it, because, life is fluid, right? We can, we choose one path and we don't choose another. And so often we think it's just happenstance, or we think we have a lot more control than what we do. And it's like, well, once again, the name of this channel is Practical Mystics. So we believe in the practical aspects of life and the mystical, the unseen. And in this case, it can be seen, right, on your chart, you can actually see it
beforehand.
Well, and I also love the idea of looking back and going, that's why I made that decision. That makes so much sense now. Or, oh, that relationship didn't work out. Oh, because, our Mercury was not in alignment. Whatever it is. And it kind of like, it brings back the play and the joy of life, right? Because we take it so seriously and feel like if we just white knuckle it, we're going to kind of wrestle it into submission. It's like life will not be wrestled into submission. Right? There's a plan.
That's it. And for listeners who feel that the term plan, like as an astrologer and astrocartographer, at the end of the day, we will always have the choice of fate and free will at our disposal. To what degree we might believe in either of those words and the meanings behind them is us, is who we are. And I have been known on occasion to challenge the status quo. That'll be a Uranus placement somewhere in your horoscope that will challenge you to do things like that. But yeah, to accept that some things are happening that is way outside of my understanding at a given point in time. So the practical side of just being honest with yourself and recognizing that this is life. I don't know where it's going to take me today, but I can make a practical choice to not go one direction. I might not know what the direction I choose to go in will take me to, but I will make a conscious choice not to go in the one that I don't want to take, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Make sure to check out the information in the show notes so that you can find Marilyn and have your chart read, whether it's astrology chart or astrocartography or both. There's actually a discount coupon or link to use in there specific for Practical Mystic listeners, so you can see all that there. And Marilyn, I just so love this conversation. You know how much I love Greece. We've had that conversation. And ironically, Crete keeps coming up all over the place. So who knows? Maybe we'll meet in person one day. Wouldn't that be exciting? So, because I
That
think Crete's
that would be
calling.
lovely, Lisa. Yeah.
Yeah, Crete's
I'm
calling
hoping
me.
to be here for a while longer, so we'll just see what's in store for me. So we'll see how we go.
Okay,
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe you're coming my way. Okay.
Who knows?
Check your chart. All right, everyone. So have your astrocartography chart created. And then, and if you do, please share in the comments what you learned and what you found out from this. But like and share. Practical Mystics people, we're growing the channel. That's the goal, is to share more information that is practical about the unseen and the mystical. All right, Marilyn, love to have you back someday. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Lisa. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Okay. Bye.